Hi everyone, I am Saleha Singh and welcome to Gupshup with Saleha. Tonight, we are discussing family violence. We welcome your questions, but because of the nature of this episode, I will not read out anybody's names. The latest ABS data shows that one in every four women suffer physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. In Victoria, police responded to 85,923 incidents of family violence in the year ending March 2020, an increase of 4,680 incidents or 6% compared to the previous 12 months. And to tell you more about this, meet my guest, Dr. Manjula O'Connor, a consultant psychiatrist with special interest in domestic and family violence and gender related issues in psychiatrist illness, anxiety, and depression. Andy Bajwa, a senior detective constable in the Homicide Squad of Victoria Police, will also join us. Unfortunately, he's having some issues with connecting to the internet, and as soon as he can, he will be here. But I'll just go ahead with Manjula. Hi, Manjula. Thank you for joining. How are
Thank you,
you?
Saleha, for having me.
It's a pleasure. Can you please tell my viewers something about yourself, please, the work that you do in this field?
Yes. So I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and I've been a psychiatrist for 40 years. And about 15 years ago, I started to explore the problem of suicide in our community and in Indian women. And I was really sad to read that to actually confirm my fear that Indian women have amongst one of the highest suicide rates in the world. And so that started my journey into discovering what is going on here and why our women are taking their life far greater than, for example, women of Australia who have Anglo-Saxon and white communities. So why is it that our women take their life? And that took me into the direction of family violence. And so I started working in this area. First in India from 2005 to 2009, I taught and I got to know Indian culture, and because I had been in Australia for so long that I really needed to get back to the real grassroots. So I taught in the Himalayan foothills and Haridwar, and got to learn about the lives of students and middle class and lower middle class and lower socioeconomic class, and how they live and what are the issues that are affecting us women. And that helped me to start my work in domestic violence in Melbourne. So since 2009, I have been focused in the area of domestic violence, and my psychiatry practice is around that area, as well as I founded the Australasian Centre for Human Rights and Health in 2012. So I've been working in that area. I'm a researcher, I'm a clinician, I am an advocate, and through my organization, we led the dowry abuse campaign in Victoria in 2013. And we got the law in 2019 in Victoria. And I'm pleased to say that WA, also Western Australia, have got the law. And we are now, and it's now part of the 4th Australian National Plan.
Yeah.
And it's a target of the federal government, and we are now hoping to get a federal law around it as well.
Oh, that is
Thank you.
fantastic. I hope it comes up. Yes.
Thank
Um,
you.
I have Andy joining us. Andy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Yes, you had a tough time logging in. Andy, Manjula has just been talking about the work that she does in the field of family abuse. Um, can you tell my viewers something about yourself, please, and how you came about working in in this department?
Yeah, I'm Andy Bajwa. I originally immigrated to Australia in year 2006. I've been a member of Victoria Police since year 2013. I initially sort of worked in Paran, Malvern, Sandringham areas. For the past, 3-4 years, I've primarily policed in the western suburbs. I was at Werribee Police Station for a couple of years, where I developed sort of quite a keen interest in helping victims of family violence. Um, and that was primary role. Victoria Police spends a lot of time and resources, helping family violence victims break the family violence cycle. So initially I worked as a uniform member, then I got a promotion and I became a detective at Family Violence Command. I'm a member of the State Task Force. I've been there for about a year and a half now. Our primary role is to investigate serious family violence offending um, that the local detectives or the uniform members don't have the resources or capacity to investigate. And for about past 3 weeks, I've been seconded to the Homicide Squad within Victoria Police.
Thank you. Um, I should also tell my viewers here that there are a lot of questions that you cannot answer, Andy. And so if anyone has any questions, please email them directly to me at info@iconmedia.net.au. And I will send it to the relevant Victoria Police Departments. Manjula, what is family violence? It's not just, it is just not restricted between two partners, is it?
No. So we have a definition. There are definitions for family violence, and a definition for domestic violence, and a definition for intimate partner violence. So the family violence is where the violence occurs between intimate partners, but also the extended family. So it can be from the in-laws, or it can be from uncles or aunts, or because what happened in Victoria was that our indigenous people felt that family violence described the situation better, because they have extended family networks that are sometimes involved in violence against women, and so they preferred the term family violence. And
Yeah.
and as it turns out, it suits our community as well. So family violence refers to the whole of the family involvement in the abuse, whereas domestic violence is used more in terms of between husband and wife, and intimate partner violence is between two partners who may not be married or who are not living together but have an intimate relationship.
Sure. Thank you. Um, Andy, does the Vic Police have any data on this?
Yes, I would just like to add to Dr. O'Connor's, definition of family violence. I just want to let the viewers know, from police's perspective, the definition of family violence within Victoria, it's defined under Family Violence Protection Act 2008, Section 5. So basically, I'll just give them a bit of an idea. So family violence is any behavior by any party or person that is physically or sexually abusive, or is emotionally or psychologically abusive, is economically abusive, or is threatening or coercive. Um, or if a person acts in any such way that they intimidate another family member or intimate, partner, or they control them or coerce them. So, in a nutshell, that's the definition. But basically, any behavior that's prohibited within the Family Violence Protection Act can be classed as family violence. And now dowry is part of that, thanks to Dr. O'Connor.
And we'll talk more about that
Sure.
in a bit. So, Andy, what does a person do if they are in an abusive relationship?
Well, I believe, from police's perspective, the first thing is, look, if you identify that there is any person, whether it's your friends, family members, or yourself, if you're a victim of family violence, the first thing is to, just say something about it, stand up for yourself. If your friends or family members, they're not capable of defending themselves, then you need to, voice out on their behalf, report the matter to police or relevant authorities. If you're not comfortable reporting it to police, then there is a lot of support agencies out there that you can get in touch with. You need to get in touch with those relevant, parties, whether it's police or support agencies, and then we can intervene and help you guys out.
Manjula, most of the time people don't want to go to the police. We all know about it. Who in that case should be the first point of contact for victims?
So I think that a lot of people feel that if they call the police, it will break up the family or the
Yes.
marriage. And as we all know, that for us Indians, family is the most important thing in life.
Correct.
And the last thing a woman or a man wants is for their marriage to break up. And so people feel that if the police are called in, an intervention order might be issued, and that will mean that the man or the perpetrator will be removed from the house, and that gives anxiety. As a result, a lot of people are willing to, they unfortunately end up suffering in silence. So my suggestion and advice to these people who are suffering in silence is that you are not alone. There is a lot of help available. All you need to do is to call 1800 RESPECT or Safe Steps number, and there will be a counselor online. There is also a particular service available for culturally and linguistically diverse communities called In Touch Multicultural Center. And you can just, it's an 1800 number, you can just ring them and you can have a confidential conversation with someone. You can also, if you are not able to do that, please, when you do go and visit your GP for your, checkup, make sure that you share your concerns with them, and they will be able to suggest the right person to talk to. Also, a lot of people don't understand that family violence actually is emotional abuse as well as physical violence, as well as economical abuse and for our culture, dowry abuse. So all of these things, these traumas, they can damage your emotional and mental health and give rise to anxiety and depression and suicidal thinking and a thought to harm yourself. But all of that can be treated. Even if you decide not to leave the perpetrator, mental health can still be treated so that it empowers the sufferer and then that makes them stronger, and they can then decide what are the best ways forward for them.
Thank you. I have a question from a viewer. Andy, maybe you want to answer this. How do you support a neighbor experiencing family violence?
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Look, firstly, you need to understand the circumstances and situation of this particular neighbor. If you think that there is an ongoing family violence happening at the family, for instance, let's say you're hearing loud voices or noises or stuff breaking in the middle of the night, you can always contact 000, and Victoria Police, will always send out a police unit to speak to this person. When you call in 000, you can always request to stay, anonymous, that you don't want the parties to know that you contacted police. If we have any issues, we've got our own investigative, avenues where we can contact you and we can speak to you further as to why you believe that there is an ongoing domestic abuse happening at that property. If you don't want to get police involved, then obviously, the other thing you can do is you can approach the person that you believe is the victim, as long as you think it's safe to do so. But look, my advice is, please don't hesitate. If you think there is any family violence being perpetrated on anyone, just contact 000 or your local police station and report it, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Andy, I have to say there are a few people who love your work. There are two people who have said great work, Victoria Police and Andy Bajwa, and another person says great work, Andy Bajwa. So,
thank you.
Manjula, many women don't know the language, they don't have access to the internet, or won't talk about their plight because of societal and community pressures. What advice would you give them? Because we never talk, we never share, we are always worried.
So this is a very difficult question. The point is that within us, within our own mind, we are not used to suffering abuse on a daily basis. It causes a lot of trauma. And if you are suffering trauma, but you silence yourself, that will cause an ongoing anxiety and depression inside you. The silence is very harmful, not just to the individual. Think about the children who are watching the abuse going on inside the family, and it puts into them a state of chronic anxiety and fear, a fear that something bad is going to happen here, and this will impact their entire life in the future, because they are these children's brain are being formed just now, and these memories are permanently laid down. And so it's very important to remember that the silence is an enormous cost to the individual who's suffering. It's an enormous cost to the children, and it's an enormous cost to the society at large, because our society functions well when the families function well, when the women are functioning well, because majority of the victims are women. We do know that there are male victims as well. For example, 1 in 16 men are victims, according to Australian Bureau of Statistics. But a lot of the violence that men experience is at the hands of other men, whereas for women, most of the violence they experience is within their home. and usually at the hands of their intimate partners and the extended family. So the silence causes disintegration of the family unit. And if there are a lot of families who are suffering this within the community, the whole community is fabric is damaged. And we as a community will not prosper and not succeed if the families are not happy. The cost of silence, and the other cost of silence is people attempting suicide and harming themselves. That's another cost. And then the final cost of silence is murder and homicide. So this is a serious, a dangerous problem. We cannot sweep it under the carpet. And as you mentioned, that the numbers of domestic violence are rising. It's been an amazing thing to learn that in the last 15 years, the numbers of domestic violence cases have risen steadily every year, year upon year. And it's the case across the whole world, not just Australia. It's happening the whole world. That's not to say that we haven't made enormous progress. We made enormous progress in gender equality, and much more women are out to work, more women are earning money. And so it's very important to remember that we are, making progress, but also there is still a lot of work that needs to be done.
Thank you. Andy, Victoria Police is doing some work in this regard, isn't it, for people who don't know the language and are scared to report? I know you sent me a link, and I know you have done interviews with SBS Radio. So can you please share that? I can't hear you. Sorry. Yes, sorry.
Sorry. Look, Victoria Police is quite dedicated, to reach out to both communities, to enlighten and to educate people about, the horrific effects that family violence can have on families, and to educate people how to break the cycle, ask for help when the help is needed, and to stand up against family violence in itself. So, in that regard, of late, Assistant Commissioner Dean McWhirter, he started a project where we did videos in about 22, I think, different languages, purely to reach out to victims of family violence within cultural communities. Yes. That included in audio and video in Hindi language, Punjabi, Arabic, Chinese, and also there was, that was shared so that people can get in touch with In Touch organization. Yes. That Dr. O'Connor mentioned earlier. That's a specific support agency which works with women from CALD communities. If you feel that you're always around your partner and you can't really talk to someone about your problems, they've also got email links and stuff, so you can actually, seek support and report incidents to In Touch email services as well.
Okay, thank you. Manjula, how would you explain emotional violence? I mean, how would people know that they are being, we talk about family violence and you say it's physical, sexual, and emotional. What exactly, we know what physical violence is, we know what sexual violence is. What exactly is emotional violence?
So the emotional violence is where one person feels that they are being controlled by another person, where they feel that there is fear if they do not follow the instructions or the decisions taken by the other person, where the control extends to social isolation. And emotional violence is where there is constant criticisms, humiliations, put downs, or a sense that the person is made to feel inferior, and they are made to feel they are worthless. And so basically, it diminishes their sense of self-worth.
Yes.
And it diminishes the person's sense of reality, meaning that person did not think I was doing that badly, but the perpetrator makes them imagine that. So it, in fact, starts to make you self doubt. And that is really harmful to your sense of identity, your self perception, your self image, your self confidence. That is the biggest problem about emotional abuse. And it's not something that is visible to outside people. It's only a mental harm, an inside the head kind of a harm. And unfortunately, the police are not able to help with this sort of a situation either.
Because it's
So,
underreported. Yes.
and not only that, I think the law is not has not caught up with how to define it adequately for the legal purposes. So there is currently a bill in New South Wales that people are currently advocating, and it's called the Bill for Coercive Control. And so if that comes into New South Wales, it'll be a wonderful example of emotional abuse coming under the jurisdiction of the law,
Okay.
which currently is hard to define in a case in a court case, because a lot of the court case depends on evidence and outside
Of course.
evidence.
Yep.
So where do you get evidence for emotional abuse?
True.
I would just like to add, to what Dr. O'Connor said. Yes, I understand the definition of coercive control and emotional abuse is quite broad, and it's
Yes.
very hard to encompass, different characteristics of emotional abuse for court purposes and stuff. But one thing over my years of policing that I've noticed, which is a common denominator in a lot of different family violence within subcontinent community, is what we call emotional attachar, in our language. And part of the problem is sometimes when people get frustrated, whatever the underlying issues may be, once you start to get in the knack of telling your partner, if you don't do this, I will do this, and you start to threaten self-harm, suicide, कि अगर आप ऐसा नहीं करोगे, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to hurt our baby, I'm going to hurt our kids, whatever the case may be. That is pretty much emotional abuse, and it is defined within the Family Violence Protection Act. If you continue to behave in that manner, and if you use those terms and threaten self-harm or to harm another person, if there is any criminal offences identified, you will be charged. And from civil perspective, police will take out an intervention order against you if you behave in that manner. So I just want to reiterate, emotionally abusing people and by threatening self-harm or suicide and stuff like that, it's not acceptable.
Thank you. So, all of us are stuck indoors with the pandemic. If a person is going through domestic violence, how does she report it when she's with the perpetrator in the same house 24/7? Manjula?
Yeah. This is the very tough question at the moment, as to and we know that a lot of women are suffering more during this period. The research that has come out from the Australian Institute of Criminology suggests that at least 1 in 4 women are actually currently going through this, and there are a lot of new cases coming up. And we know from call centers like 1800 Respect that the number of calls have increased, and lot of people are doing chats online. So that's what you can do. You can do chat online. And you can also do chat online with the 1800 Respect and Safe Steps. But you can also, if you are able to, speak to your GP by phone, you can do that as well. But there is no doubt that for people who might be women, victims who might be feeling unable to get access to those opportunities, that they are at greater risk and they need to somehow get the message out to their friends or to their neighbors that they are feeling threatened. That's probably the safest thing to do if you are not able to do contact the police yourself. Like you can ring 000 yourself. So this is something that people have to, and therefore the role of the neighbors becomes very important, and the role of friends, just to check up on each other to make sure that everyone is doing well.
Sure. Andy, would you like to add anything to it?
Yes, absolutely. Look, one of the things that sort of came up in my mind is like the recent work that Victoria Police has done was primarily because of the pandemic and all the other underlying issues. As Dr. O'Connor said, look, with family violence, victims, it's really hard being stuck at home 24/7 with the perpetrators at times.
Yeah.
Look, I just want to reiterate, yes, there are COVID restrictions, but within COVID restrictions, one of the exemptions is that if you're a victim of family violence, do not feel that you cannot leave your house to escape the perpetrator. If you think that's the safest way out for you to leave and go to the police station, by all means, do that. There is exemptions within the COVID restrictions that you're allowed to do that. You can leave your house for that purpose to report family violence to police. If you're not safe, I'm just going to reiterate it again. Look, In Touch, 1-800-RESPECT, 000, reporting it directly to police. If you cannot talk, there is these services, like In Touch. You can email them, or you can, have chat provisions. And in terms of society as a whole, I think as friends, family members, neighbors, we just gotta look out for each other. If you're suspicious that there is family violence, being perpetrated next door or in next room or within the community, please call us on 000 or local police station. We'll always take these matters seriously. We'll appreciate your phone calls. You're not going to be judged because you've made a phone call. Okay, if nothing comes out of it, it's still going to serve as intelligence, for Victoria Police. So look, every phone call is valued, and all the intel that you provide us is actually, assessed, and we try to help people out. So please contact us if you doubt that there is family violence being perpetrated against anyone in the community.
Andy, may I please request you to just say these few things in Hindi and Punjabi for all our viewers who may not know English fluently, because I think sometimes that becomes a problem because they don't know the language. They've just arrived, they're international students, whatever may be the case. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I'll start in Hindi first. Look, कोविड के टाइम पे हम सब लोग अपने अपने घरों में स्टक हैं. बहुत सारी लड़कियां, लड़के, regardless of sex, gender, अगर आप पे कोई भी फैमिली वायलेंस perpetrate कर रहा है, आपको कोई परेशानी है, आप बेझिझक अपना घर छोड़ के पुलिस को रिपोर्ट करने जा सकते हैं. आपको कोविड फाइन नहीं मिलेगा क्योंकि विदिन द कोविड रिस्ट्रिक्शंस एक एग्जेम्पशन है कि अगर आप फैमिली वायलेंस के विक्टिम हैं तो आप अपना घर छोड़ के पुलिस स्टेशन रिपोर्ट करने जा सकते हैं इंसिडेंट्स, और उसके बाद में आपके जो भी हेल्प होगी, चाहे सपोर्ट एजेंसीज को रेफर करना है या क्रिमिनल इन्वेस्टिगेशन है, देन पुलिस विल टेक केयर ऑफ इट. बाकी ये कहना था कि आप अपने पड़ोसियों का, अपने दोस्तों का, मित्रों का, अगर आपको लगता है कि कहीं पर भी समाज में फैमिली वायलेंस कमिट हो रहा है, पारिवारिक हिंसा जिसे बोलते हैं, तो आप प्लीज़ 000 कॉल करके रिपोर्ट करिए। बाकी पंजाबी च मैं सेम इन्फॉर्मेशन देना चाहांगा। कोरोना वायरस के टाइम ते, कोविड पैंडेमिक के टाइम ते ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਣੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੱਝੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਾਰਨਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਇਲਜ਼ਾਮ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਐਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਪਰਪੇਟਰੇਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਬੇਝਿਜਕ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ 000 ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ, ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੋ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਪੜੋਸੀ ਜਾਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਤੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੋ। ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਕੋਵਿਡ ਰਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਇੰਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਤੇ ਲਾਗੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ। ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਫਟੀ ਸਿਕਿਉਰਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਪਰਪੇਟਰੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਿਕ ਹਿੰਸਾ, ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਸਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਫਾਈਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ, ਇਹ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗਾ। ਤੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਵਿਕਟੋਰੀਆ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਤੇ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਏਜੰਸੀਜ਼ ਤੇ ਭਰੋਸਾ ਕਰੋ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੁੱਕੋਗੇ, ਆਪਣੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਠਾਓਗੇ, ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ, ਤਾਂ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਤੇ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਵਾਇਲੈਂਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਈਕਲ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਕਰਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਹੋਏਗਾ।
Thank you, Andy. Manjula, you have written a paper on dowry deaths in Australia. I did not even know something like that existed until you told me about it. What can you share about your paper?
What I'll start with is that we found that when we did our first research project, that was in 2009, 10, 11, it was a theater, a community participatory theater, and we wanted to know from women what is the state of play in Victoria as far as family violence is concerned, because all the services were very concerned that there were no women coming from South Asian and from the subcontinent. And I did a quick ring around to find out what was the level of situation, and I found that less than 5% of women from our communities were going for help as compared to other communities. And so we started this community participatory theater with women only as participants to find out what were the themes that were affecting them. And so we got an amazing amount of knowledge out of those projects, which I have written papers about, and they've been published. And you can find the links on my website when you go there at manjulaoconnor.com. And in that, we found that there is a lot of silence. There's a fear of speaking out. There was a sense of women feeling really emotionally suffering emotionally through emotional abuse, being made to feel birthless and feeling bad. And also in that, we came across another example, which was a surprise to us, was of dowry abuse, that they were being asked to provide money, gifts, and various, gold and things like that to the in-laws' family, and cash, huge amounts of cash. And that because if the groom was an NRI living in Australia, that groom had a huge value back in India, and they commanded big dowry. And the dowry amounts were sometimes $40,000, $50,000, and the gold about and a similar amount of gold. And I know of women whose families have spent anything up to $1 million in the wedding, and expecting some people expected that their houses will be paid, and so on. It was quite a surprise for us. And then we found out that, within my own clinical practice, I found that this problem was, in fact, contributing to 75% of the domestic violence in Melbourne. And that's when we started the campaign in 2013 with a petition that we said that we need to bring the dowry abuse under the Victorian Family Law Act. And so that was in 2013. And then we had a murder in Victoria of a woman called Deepshika Godara. And I had a good fortune of meeting her father, very sadly though, after her murder, who told me that they gave her husband and her in-laws a huge amount of cash, and they wanted more, which he said he will have to cash out his superannuation to pay them.
Whoa.
And yeah. And he was ready to cash out his superannuation. And she was suffering constant harassment in Victoria as a result of not having given enough cash, and also not having given enough good quality gifts, and also not having given gifts to all their relatives at Diwali, at Dussehra, at Holi, at Vaisakhi.
So this is happening in Australia.
She is living in Australia, and the gifts are being given in India.
What? Sorry. Okay.
Yes. The couple live in Melbourne, and this is not just Deepshika who got murdered. I have hundreds of women with the story now in my clinical practice and in our projects. The couple live in Australia, and the bride's family in India have to go and deliver these gifts to the parents of the husband. And if she doesn't ask her parents to give those gifts in India, then she is subjected to domestic violence here.
So it's done internationally, and so in-laws are interfering from the other end, and the girl gets abused here. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so the difficulty is, what do we do about it? It's not like I said, it was 75% of all domestic violence I was seeing in 2013. And now, after so much media publicity, because I appeared in almost more than 100 articles. Can you hear me now? So we had a lot of publicity, and as a result, that the numbers have dropped down to about 50% of all domestic violence is dowry-related abuse and financial related abuse. And it's just not in my figures. You talk to any domestic violence service providers, they suddenly, after we started the campaign in 2013, every single service provider in Australia started to say, yes, now we know what this is. They were seeing it, but they did not know what it is.
Sure.
Or they actually, and the women were not able to name it because they thought nobody in Australia will understand it. But now we actually have made sure that everybody in Australia, all the service providers know about it, and that there are, there are, unfortunately, we are still having difficulty in trying to figure out how the girls can reclaim their dowry, because the dowry, and another form of interesting abuse is that when she gets married, and how, how the girls get gold jewelry,
Yes.
often family antique jewelry
Heirloom.
is
Yes.
handed
Yes.
down to the heirlooms. And you know how when she enters the house, what happens then? When
She
she
has
enters
to
a
give it to her
new
mother-in-law. I know that. Yes.
and then what does her mother-in-law do? She puts it in the locker, and the locker is under her control. And then there is domestic violence, and then that gold never comes back to her, never comes back to her. Right? And of course, a lot of people will say, but this is rubbish because, this is false because the girls make false complaints. They always take the gold to Australia, or they never, that they took it from before they came to Australia. But we know culturally, we know what happens. That
Of
never
course.
happens.
Yes.
Because if the new bride asked for the gold back from the mother-in-law, then what is the label that's put upon her? The label that's put upon her is that she's too cunning,
Of course. Everybody's cunning. Yes.
and that she's not trustworthy.
Yes.
And then starts another round of emotional abuse and isolation within the extended family. Right? And so,
No.
yeah,
Sorry,
go on.
Manjula, you were saying.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was that, uh, so the people, and we had a question even before the program started last week about what about false cases of dowry abuse.
Yes, somebody wrote to me too, saying why is no one talking about it? But that's a
Yeah, the fake
yes.
cases. Now, I want to ask these people, if you look at the data about in-law mental health torture in India, every year about 130,000 complaints are made. About 7,500 women are killed in dowry deaths. No one is taking note of that. And how many women actually get justice, and how many perpetrators are actually charged is less than 2%. Now, if you take that as evidence that these dowry cases are fake, then I just think people have no idea what justice is and what cruelty the women are going through. And is there a wonder that Indian women have the highest suicide rate in the world?
I hope men are listening. Andy, is the Vic Police doing anything? Sorry, Manjula.
Yes, I like Andy to talk about this because I want to speak about our project next year.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Look, when you compare the Indian policing system and the Australian policing system, they're very different in a lot of ways. So there are, in my humble experience, an opinion, I think a lot of the women, they don't approach and report the incidents to police is primarily because of, two or three primary reasons. First one being their personal experiences with police back in India, because they report matters to police and all of a sudden it becomes a complicated issue where you got to bribe people, things drag on, years on end, nothing gets done, and they get abused more in the process.
Yeah.
So that's the first, reason that I can sort of understand and see. Second is a lot of them, they come on student visas, or they may be on spouse visas where they feel extremely reliant on the perpetrator, and they don't understand the provisions within the Australian, Migration Act, which protect them in a lot of different ways. And the third reason is the family, coercion and control from back in India. So I would just like to add a few things, and this is not purely as a representative of Victoria Police. This is more also being a responsible member of our subcontinent diaspora. I think this is my responsibility. Look, if we are going to change anything, I think the younger generations need to change. Everyone within their own rights, if you ask them, what have you done, in terms of education, they've done bachelor's, master's, honors, doctorate, whatever the case may be. If you ask them about their occupation, engineers, doctors, we've got people of different calibers, and who've achieved quite a lot within our community. But still, people are very reluctant to talk about real issues like family violence, sexual violence, sexual abuse, dowry. I mean, the thing is, whatever has happened in the past with ancestors and, other parental issues that people may have experienced, but this is our opportunity to change. I think the best way moving forward is to learn from both cultures, stick to your roots, be proud of your Indian culture, but also, learn from the country that has adopted us as its own, you know what I mean? Like, be a little bit more practical, understand the problems that women are facing in this day and age. If you're going to add to their problems by supporting your parents, even though you know that they're wrong when it comes to dowry, or mounting other pressure on the girl's, family, then you are as culpable, and as, guilty as the family members who are trying to coerce that particular person. On that note, what I want to add is, if Victoria Police, if you report incidents to Victoria Police and we, intervene in your family violence cycle, help you break the cycle, intervention order is put in place. One of the conditions that primarily gets put on the intervention order is that the perpetrator, which could be your partner, intimate partner, brother, sister, they cannot get another person to do whatever they are prohibited from doing.
Okay.
So that adds an extra sort of layer of protection when it comes to dowry, or when it comes to people from India ringing you, harassing you, all the rest of it. I'm not going to go into, too much detail about investigative, avenues and processes that Victoria Police follows. But at the same time, all I can say is, look, there is ways to seek help. There is organizations out there. But from Victoria Police's perspective, we can only do so much so on the proactive front.
Of course.
In terms of identifying the victims. But if the victims, we can encourage people. It's our job to support people. I've been part of a lot of different, Victoria Police projects. I'm pretty vocal about the fact that people need to stand up for their rights. If people are not capable, if they don't feel confident, that's where we as responsible citizens, friends, family, we need to support those people. We need to voice our opinions against family violence or violence being perpetrated against these people. But all I can say and reiterate is, look, there is support structures in place. There is processes in place, which I'd be more than happy to answer next. But yeah, that's all I have to add at this point in time. I'd be more than happy to educate people how Victoria Police, can help them from point A to point B. Okay.
Thank you, Andy. One of my viewers wanted the helpline numbers. I'll share it after the program. I know Victoria Police, had sent it across to me. Do you have them, Andy? No.
I do have 1-800 respect.
Yes, I have the number.
That's an easy one. 1800 respect, and in touch is also 1800 number. Yeah,
I'll share that after the program.
Yeah, so just want to say something about solutions to the problem, because Andy's talked about that. That we do have solutions to the problem. People should not think that there is no way out, because the government, there is enormous amount of government support for victims. But also, you may be interested to know, the viewers would be interested to know that we are also trying to put support in place for perpetrators who sometimes have to be removed from the house, that because of the family violence situation. The government is, and we have been working with the government and No to Violence to make rooms available in a hotel or in a home for people who are removed from their home if they have perpetrated violence. Because a lot of the times perpetrators may feel that they are totally unsupported, but in actual fact, the government is there to support, because the fundamental point is that this is a behavior that can change. It does not need to be, it's not permanent behavior. It's all in the way we think. We can change our thinking. And if we can change this idea that only a man can be powerful and dominate the house, and a woman must be the submissive partner who has less value and less worth, and she must be obedient and obey everything. If we change that, and we start to recognize that respect is possible, and the two people can communicate with each other, and the same for the mother-in-law and the father-in-law and all those people, that the younger people, the new bride deserves as much respect as they have, we can change this around. And this is why the government is willing to support the men now at this point, that they will also be provided a place to stay, just like the women are, the victims are, if they have nowhere to go. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is that the husband here has a very, very tricky role to play. He has to play the go-between his mother and his new wife. And as long as the men know that this is not an easy job, but they can respect their mother and also tell her to step back a little bit so they can bond with their wife and show the wife that love and respect that she wants. Because the new bride in our context, in our community, has left her parents behind. And as a migrant, she's left everything behind. And all she has is her husband and her new family. And that person is vulnerable. And they deserve support, and they deserve the love, and they deserve the care just as much as the husband and the in-laws deserve love and care. And so that situation, and the thing is that our extended families are the most supportive structures when they work well.
Absolutely.
And majority of the, because majority of the families work really well. We are not talking, majority of the families are great. We are only talking about a small number of problem, but it's also changeable. And my organization, the Australasian Center for Human Rights and Health, we are constantly out there running those kind of projects to create the sense that things can change. They are not immutable. They can change and they can get better. Please come and join our projects and programs. We are currently funded to run a program called Mutual Relational Respect that we've been running with Brotherhood of St. Lawrence. And we ran a group with Punjabi women, a group with Afghani women, a group with Afghani men. But unfortunately, we could not get enough men from our own community to come and join the group. So I please, I implore you to come and join the program, and you will love it. You will see how just looking at the same situation in a slightly different way can turn your family life into a much more stronger and harmonious life. And if your family life is happy, you will be successful everywhere, and your children will be successful too.
Of course. Thank you. Andy, would you like to say something? Because we are running out of time. So I just...
Yeah, absolutely. Look, from Victoria Police's perspective, I just want to educate our viewers as to what exactly happens when I say Victoria Police intervention, what exactly happens. So I'll just give you a scenario. Let's say family violence incident occurs at a house. The affected family person or the member feels victimized. They call 000. They report the incident to police. Victoria Police, members will attend the house. They'll separate the parties. They'll speak to both the parties. Will try to find the truth as to what's happened. It doesn't necessarily always means that we will take out an intervention order on behalf of the affected family person. We all know that there is ups and downs in every relationship. Not every argument, not every dispute has any, malice or criminal intent behind it. As Manjula said, it's about identifying the problem and then addressing it by seeking help.
Absolutely.
That's where Victoria Police can either basically get the story, do the reports, do referrals for the affected family person, excuse me, and also for the perpetrator, which is a win-win for both the parties because both of them get linked to appropriate services, gives them a bit of time to work on the issues, and that might result into them leading a happy life, from there onwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So can I
yes, please.
put in a plug? So the government, the federal government, recognized that the dowry abuse situation needs to be educated police, the professional service providers, and the communities. We all need to come together and understand what we can do to support our families. So to that extent, it's we've got funding, and we are running a survey. And you've got that, Saleha, you've got the
I put the survey
links.
up, yes, I put the survey up.
Thank you. So can I please request, and I'll say that in Hindi and Punjabi, can I please request you to fill in the survey? We want your knowledge about what is going on and what we can do to educate the community and the service providers, including the police, to recognize it better and to help our communities to become stronger. Please, aap survey ko bhariye. Ek Hindi mein hai, and ek Punjabi vich hega, and one is in Tamil and one is in Telugu. So please choose the language, your language one, because कई जो लफ्ज हैं वो टेक्निकल वर्ड्स हैं जिनका कि you may be better able to उसको ज़्यादा समझ आएगा कि अगर आपने लैंग्वेज में भरो तो वो सर्वे में आपको सिर्फ 7 या 8 मिनट लगेंगे, पर पूरे क्वेश्चंस भर के उसको सबमिट बटन को भेजना ज़रूरी है, नहीं तो हमें इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिलेगी. So please, I request you to do that. We have up to now collected 95 responses, and we need another 100 to go. So your help would be really, really valuable, please. Thank you. And all I want to say is stay safe. COVID-19 is a very difficult time. And if there's anything you need from me, anyone who needs help, you are free to contact me. If you Google my name, you will find my telephone numbers and my contact details.
Thank you, Manjula. Andy,
Thank you.
Sorry,
you want
Sal,
to say
before we
something?
wrap up, I just want to highlight a few numbers to people.
Yes, please.
And primarily मैं हिंदी में शेयर करना चाहूँगा. उसका कारण ये है कि बहुत बार एक स्टिग्मा होता है कि फैमिली वायलेंस रिपोर्ट करना है पुलिस को. हर इंसान को हमारी कम्युनिटी में लगता है कि हमारा पड़ोसी हमसे ज्यादा खुश है. They've got a perfect life, बड़ी गाड़ी, बड़ा घर, everything is rosy. So that's why people sometimes feel embarrassed, ashamed, to report it to police, to have other agencies, interfering in their life. But you just got to change your perspective. You got to understand and put it this way: early intervention with a lot of these problems is the best way. It's a bit like medicine, medicinal science. Early intervention is the only way to cure a lot of the problems. So to reflect upon the numbers, last financial year, Victoria Police ne 85,923 family violence incidents को report किया था. Respond किया था 12-month period में. That means कि 235 family violence incident Victoria Police respond कर रही है pretty much every day. That amounts to one family violence incident every 6 minutes. So basically कहने का मतलब ये है कि आप इस दुविधा में अकेले नहीं है कि आपको कोई परेशानी है कि पुलिस को कॉल करनी चाहिए नहीं करनी चाहिए. प्लीज 000 कांटेक्ट करिए. बाकी अगर आप 000 नहीं कांटेक्ट कर सकते, आप कम्युनिटी में मुझे जानते हैं, रीच आउट करना चाहते हैं, जैसे डॉक्टर ओकॉनर ने कहा, प्लीज फील फ्री टू कांटेक्ट मी. आई विल ट्राई माय बेस्ट टू डू whatever I can do to guide you guys and to help you out, and stay safe during this difficult COVID time. Support each other. एक दूसरे का ध्यान रखिए, safe रहिए. And thank you, Sal.
Thank you. Thank you, Manjula. Thank you, Andy. And to all
Thank
my
you,
viewers,
Saleha.
stay safe, stay
Thank
well,
you, guys. Take care.
and good night. Bye.
Good night.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.